So in this task, we're going to try and fix rubber duck debugging task number 2. So we need to first of all click on the link on the presentation, and then once we've done that, we'll end up on this page here. So this is a rubber duck debugging task number 2 in Mrs. Medway's Replit repository. What we're going to do is we're going to click on the fork button at the top right up here, and that will then create a copy of the program and place it into your own area. And before you do that, you need to have logged on to Replit so it knows who you are. So it's copied the code over to my Replit area, and then here's my program, and I'm looking at it, and I'm going to just talk through what it's doing to the rubber duck. So first of all, import random. That tells Python that we're using this library called random. Comp num equals random.randint 1, 100. Randint produces a random integer number between 1 and 100 inclusive. It's in the random library. What this is doing is it's producing a random number between 1 and 100, and it's saving it into a variable called compint. So comp num is a random number between 1 and 100. It's a random integer between 1 and 100. And then it says while play again is true. And then we have a line of code that asks the user to enter we're asking the user to enter a number, and we're saving that as user number. We're then saying guesses is 1. If the number is the one the computer generated, we're saying they got it right, and then we're going to set play again to false. Once we've done that, if they entered a number that the user's number was less than the computer's number, we're saying that the number the user guessed was too high, otherwise we're saying it was too low. And then we keep on going around that loop until the loop ends, and then we're going to say you took so many turns to get it right. So now we've done that, we're going to just run through the code and actually work out that's what we want it to do. So basically the program is generating a random number, and then it's repeatedly asking the user to guess that number. And if they guess too low, it says they've guessed too low. If they guess too high, it tells them they've guessed too high. And when they guess the correct number, we then tell them they got it right and they took so many goes. So we've got a program here. I'm not going to run this because if I run it, I might have a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually work through it line by line and try and work out what's going on here and if there's anything wrong. So first of all, line number 1, nothing wrong with that. Line number 2, there's nothing wrong with that. So now we're going to get to this line that says while play again is true. Now play again is true. So what's the value of play again at the moment? Well, play again doesn't have a value, and that means we can't check if it's true. So that tells us we straight away have an error. And what I've got to do is type in play again. One of the easiest ways of getting your variable names right, by the way, is to copy them. So I'm going to copy here. I'm going to say play again, and I'm going to make play again equal to true before I start my program. So play again is now true. So while play again is true, it's asking the user to enter a number, it's converting it into an integer, and it's saving it into user num. So user num is good. It then says set guesses is 1. That's good at the moment. But what's going to happen next time we go around the loop? It's going to set guesses to 1 again. And then it's going to set guesses to 1 again. And then it's going to set guesses to 1. So guesses is always going to be 1. So this line of code is in the wrong place. That will give us a logic error. So I'm going to remove that line of code there, and I'm going to put it in up here before we enter the loop. This is called initialization. It's setting code to have an initial value. So I'm going to put that there, and you'll notice what I've got is I've got the library commands at the top here for the random. Then I'm doing all of the initialization here. This is setting giving the variables their starting values. I'm then going to ask the user for the number, and then say if the user number is the correct number, we say they got it right, and we set play again false. What that means is when we go round the loop again, it says well play again is true. Well, it's false now, so we're going to fall out the loop. Down here, if the user number is less than the computer number, it's saying we guessed too high. Well, we didn't, we guessed too low. So I'm actually going to change that to be, I'm going to change the conditional operator. I'm going to say if it's greater than. So if the user number is greater than the computer's number, they guess too high, otherwise they guess too low. And if the user number is the same as computer numbers, we say they were correct, and we set play against false. So that will cause it to exit the loop. Else, if the user number is greater than the computer's number, we say it's too high. That's good. And then when we go around the loop again, it's going to ask them to guess again. And down here, we say the number's too low. And again, if they get it when we go around the loop, it's going to ask them to enter another number. So it's going to give them another go. And then it's going to exit the loop, and that should be good. So I think right now we've got a program that might work. So what we're going to do is test it. We run it, and it tells us that we have a syntax error and says you took guesses turns. So I'm looking at this statement here. It says you took, so there's a string, then there's a variable, and then there's another string. But you can see if you look at the first one here, we've got a comma between these two items. We need a comma right here, and then we that should have fixed that syntax error. So let's try again, and we run, and it says play again is equal to true. So we've got a syntax error here. So what we need to do is look up what that code should say. And the reason is because we need a capital T for the word true. So play again is true. We click away from it, and you'll notice how the little red underlines disappeared. So let's try that again. And it seems to be, it's looking good now. It says guess a number. I'm going to say 6. And it says we've got to trace back, and it says if user number is the same as comnum, this is the error. We're getting the line on this line of code here, which is line number 10, and it's saying comnum is not defined. So that's saying that variable doesn't exist. Well, we entered a number and it got saved, and if you look at the variable name there, that one doesn't match the variable name here. So if we copy the variable name to the first one, and I'm going to overwrite that with the second one right there. I'm just going to overwrite that there, and let's try that again. All the red underlining's gone, so that's good. So I'll run it again. I'm going to enter 6 again, and it's going to say, it says to me too low. So I'm going to enter 8, too low. So it must be 9. I entered 9, and it says too low. Okay, what about 50? Let's do 50. Too high. So let's try 25. Let's try in the middle. I'm going to do a thing called a binary search. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go halfway between the number I guess and either the top limit or the bottom. So 25, that's too low. So that means it's between 25 and 50. So I'm going to enter 42. I'm going to enter 40. That says that's too low. So it's between 40 and 50. So I'm going to enter 45. Too high. 43. Too high. 42. Press enter, and it says I got it, but I took 1 turn. Now that tells me that what I've got to do is I've got to remember to increase the number of turns that it took me. So if you look in here, it said you took guesses turns. Well, we set guesses to 1 up here, but we haven't changed guesses within the loop. So what I'm going to do is after the user's entered a number, I'm going to increment the number of guesses. And if you remember, the way we can do that in Python is by saying guesses plus equals 1. So I'm going to copy this line of code here, and then I'm going to put this in right here, paste it in, and I'm going to put a plus sign in front of that equals. So just fix up that line of code, and then I can run that again and I can test it. And I'm going to test it in the same way. So what I did there is if you take the number between 1 and 100, well, halfway is 50, so you want to guess 50 first time. And then if it says it's too high, what you do is you guess 25. So you guess halfway between 1 and 50. If it's too low, you guess halfway between 50 and 100. So each time you do a guess, you should be throwing away half of the possibilities, and you're doing what's called a binary search, and that will get you closer and closer to the answer. If you really want another shortcut, what you could do is you could put a line of code in, maybe line 3 here, and you could simply get Python to print out what comnum is, and then that way you'll know what numbers you're trying to guess, and you can test that your program works correctly. But this is testing to make sure your programs work correctly. But that's how we do rubber duck debugging task number 2.